So we all know that computing power has gotten big, but did you know that hackers can try up to 350 billion passwords every second with the programs that they write? It's becoming easier and easier for a computer to guess your passwords. So first off, we're going to go through some bad password practices and things you should avoid. So the first tip that we have is that you should not reuse your passwords across separate sites. The most important of which would be between your bank account and your email, because that means if a hacker gets into your email, they immediately have access to your bank account, and you do not want that. Also, you don't want to keep your passwords in anything like Excel, a Word document, or a notepad on your computer, especially if it's labeled passwords, because that's just a telltale sign, and it's very easy for a hacker to get into that. So next, we're going to go through just some generally bad passwords that you should try to avoid when you're making a new password. And we'll be showing two columns, one of which would be the password itself, and the next would be the time it takes for a computer program to hack into that password. So you can get a real visual of how bad these passwords really are. So another tip before we give you these passwords is that when a website tells you that you've made a strong password, it normally just means that you actually met their requirements in making a password, like has 6 characters, has a symbol, and a certain number of like capital and lowercase letters. That does not mean necessarily that it's a strong password. It just means it meets their requirements. Those are different things. I just want you guys to know that. So the first type of password that you want to try to avoid would be anything that has consecutive characters. So this would be a thing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ABCD, or if you look at your keyboard on the top left part of the keyboard, it says QWERTY. That's also a thing you want to avoid. Typically, these would be like the first thing a hacker would try if they're trying to get into your account. So the next thing you want to avoid is any sort of dictionary words in your passwords, because these are just generally easy to guess. There's words like monkey, dragon, things like that you want to avoid. And even if there's multiple words in a row, this is still an easy thing for a computer to guess. So the next category would be just something that's generally bad. So these are things like password, welcome, let me in, admin, things like that would be one of the first things a hacker would try. So the last category you want to avoid would be information about you or your loved ones. So this would include things like your name, a relative's name, your pet's name, things like that. Or it could also be any sort of dates, like a birth date, your anniversary date, or just things like in general, like your social security number. You obviously want to avoid that, and your phone number, things like that, because this is information that's easily accessible from the internet, especially just your Facebook page. Like some people keep their phone number, their anniversary date, their birth date on Facebook, and it's really easy to access these things and for a hacker to guess these things. So that about wraps up the password don'ts, the things we want you to avoid when making passwords and keeping your passwords.
You've already heard about what not to do, so now let's talk about what you can do to keep your passwords strong and safe. So the key here is to create passwords that are easy for you to remember, but hard for a computer to guess. Common requirements such as using capital and non-capital letters, numbers, symbols, they're all definitely important and need to be considered when creating a new password. But how you use these characters are equally as important. Let's say I need to create a new password for my Moodle account. I like to use quotes because they reach the length requirement no problem. I choose René Descartes' famous quote, "I think, therefore I am." It's 18 characters long and it's easy to remember, but in reality, it's pretty easy to crack. So I replace the first I with an exclamation point and the third I with the number 1, but the password is just as weak as it was before. I capitalize the first T and it's a little bit better, but honestly, it's still pretty bad. And yet, it meets all of the requirements. A simple solution: remove the vowels and my password strength skyrockets. Of course, there are other ways to make strong passwords. You can use passphrases, or you can even create your own method like I did. To test your method, you can use an online password strength tester. The one we use for this video is My1Login, but there are many others out there. Just make sure the one that you use is secure.
Also, if you're having trouble remembering your passwords, we recommend using a password manager. Two that we personally use would be Dashlane and LastPass, which are two examples of a freemium password manager, but there are many out there. Just make sure the one that you use is secure.
Thanks for watching. We hope you found this video useful.